Well, hey, welcome. Good evening, and to some of you, a very early good morning. Welcome to Thru Port Collective, and we're here with our buddy Cy. Before we get into it, though, just a quick reminder, because sometimes I forget, if you're not subscribed and if you like the show and all that stuff, we appreciate it. And also, just want to remind people that we do have a Facebook group where we talk during the week, and you're welcome to post in there, and we'll toss ideas and things around. And with all that said, all that little bit of gobbledygook, we'll keep that short. We'll kind of get to what everybody's doing later at the end of the show, so we'll come back and talk about that. But welcome to our friend Cy. We've been really excited to have you on. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. It's great to be on your show. Thanks very much for having me. And yeah, it's great. Good morning.
Yes.
It's 1 o'clock here. I did get a little bit of a nap this afternoon, which was great. So I shouldn't be too many yawns from me, but I'm good. Yeah, nice to be on the show.
So, I don't know. I think probably everybody knows you already that's watching, although we have a lot of people watching during the week who may not know you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are in the synth TARDIS there, Synth Lord?
The Synth Lord. Well, my daytime job, I'm a commercial airline pilot. I fly for a British airline, and I've been into this stuff since it first came out. In my teens, I started getting interested in electronic music around about sort of 80, 81. I got through my college. Our education's a little bit different to how you do it in the States, but basically did a college degree in industrial engineering and CNC, which is computer numeric control. So computers back then were very in their infancy and that. But really, my love was in music. So I got all this wonderful education and then decided to go and work in a music shop in the middle of London. But I loved it. And so what you see behind you is just years of collecting gear and just a love for what I do. So what I do is now purely a hobby. I'm pretty self-sufficient at doing sort of electronics and stuff. So a lot of I'd say about 90%, maybe 95% of my gear I maintain myself. And it's just a labor of love, really. I don't go out drinking or smoking, or I don't have flash cars. I spend all my money on synthesizers. So that's it, really.
There you go. An inspiration to us all.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Kind of have the same thing going on.
Yeah.
It's cool you
mentioned. So, I mean, anyone out there that's getting, sort of guilt conscious about buying the latest bit of kit, don't, because I've been there, done it, and ticked that box for the last 40 odd years, But, it's just, can't think of anything better, guys. We all love it. Once you get the bug, you're bitten. That's it, really.
The crazy thing is that, like, when you think about what people spend money on, I mean, there are people that invest a lot of money into their automobiles, and for that experience and for the same reason they love it and enjoy that experience. But I'm always thinking, like, man, you could buy a Porsche or something, or you could have a ridiculous amount of synthesizers and guitars. Yeah. And that just always seems more appealing to me.
Yeah, I think the question I get asked the most is, why do you need so many? Of which I sort of come up with every bullshit excuse under the sun. But I don't know, really. I mean, they all do different things in their own way. I will be honest with some of them I haven't turned on for an awful long time, but it gets that day where I just I haven't played something for ages, and just turn it on and sit with it for hours and put it back. I'm just I find it very difficult to let stuff go, as you can probably see.
So like, when did you first start collecting synthesizers? Because I think that can be a little bit you know, like when people see a collection like yours, they think that you've really dropped an outrageous amount of money all at once or something, because you see all those things in there, but you've
Yeah.
got a lot of stuff going back to the 80s, right?
Yeah. Oh God. I mean, you can't actually see it in the photo right now, but there's stuff buried in the back that is literally brand new. A quick, I suppose, a very quick rundown of where it all started from. My biological father was he was an electronic engineer in the 60s and 70s, and we used to go and stay with him. My parents were separated, and I used to be fascinated by his work. I just loved anything to do with electronics. Now, he built this organ for my brother and I to go and play with when we used to go and stay with him. And it was a very basic organ from what I can remember, but it had these rocker switches with flute, obviously organ, strings. Now it was very basic, and then it had the sort of pitch, the feet thing on it. But my brother and I realized that if you got these buttons, these rocker switches, and sort of just about got them right halfway, we used to stick matches down the back of them to hold them just in the right position. You'd get two sounds working at the same time. It sounded awful. And my dad caught us doing this, and he thought we were breaking it. Went absolutely crazy. And we said to him, no, we're not doing it. What we're doing is getting these rocker switches to do it. Anyway, he effectively circuit bent the thing, and that's how my love for twiddling knobs and stuff and all that, started. My first synthesizer, my parents bought me back in 1980, which was an SH09, and it sort of grew from there. I was in a band with my brother, and we just bought kit, traded kit, but as things went on, and I finally, as I say, left college, went into retail. I was very young. I was only 17, 18 years old. I got the opportunity to work overtime. The store would give me trade, and you could pay it off monthly or whatever. And that's how I got a lot of stuff that you see. All the early stuff is behind me. Sorry, the old stuff is behind me. For example, if I can get my finger in the right position, what's over there? That there is my original Prophet 5, and the story behind that was when I was working in this store, buried in the back was a white box that said sequential Prophet 5 on it, and Prophet 5 was always the synth that I wanted back in the 80s. And I opened this box up in the shop, and this thing was there, and I said, well, what's this Prophet 5? This was 1984, 85, something like that. And it was just unsold. So I said, look, I want it. And initially they said, no, we're going to sell that, because they were still about £2,500 back then. But yeah, that's just an example. I bought that back then. It's been with me a long time. There's a Juno 60 on the back wall, which we bought in 1983. There's a E2 that I've had since it came out. So yeah, I've been lucky. And you've got to remember that things back then weren't as crazy prices as they are now. So
Yeah.
A lot of it I've been very fortunate with. A lot of it I brought back from America as well, because the job gives me that ability to do that. And then of course we get onto this thing, which was a complete fluke getting this thing. But yeah, that'll probably take a bit of time to explain that. And I'd never seen this in Synclavier before. I'd always wanted one. Never heard one. And it was bust when I got it. So, and I opened one of those up, was like, oh dear, what have I just bought? Because there's an awful lot of ribbon cables in the back of that.
Is that computer on the top there? Is that for the Synclavier, or is that something else?
Yeah. Okay. So how does it? I mean, I didn't. It's a really, I didn't know how Synclavier works. So yeah, what you've got there is basically you've got the tower, as you can see, and what the Synclavier is, it's 2-in-1. It's an FM synthesizer which you control from this thing, which is called a VPK, velocity pressure keyboard, and you can manipulate most of the sound from the front panel. Then you've got sampling side of it, the digital side of it. Um, and you have got less control from the DK. What the computer does, it's just a front end. It literally is like an editing package that you can get for your iPad or the editing package from Sequential for the Prophet or something like that. So yeah, it's a front end. You can use it without it, but the computer it is a much better way of using it. You can go through the sounds, audition the sounds before you have to load them up, and yeah, I'd be pretty lost without it. So, it's one of those things where I haven't actually upgraded, because you can actually upgrade it to a more modern Mac. But you know what, it works, and it just sounds amazing. The question I get asked a lot, and I'll answer it before you ask me it, is what does it sound like? I think people would like to, they compare it to the Fairlight really. My answer to that is it's significantly better than the Fairlight, and everyone that's used a Synclavier will say that. I mean, I've heard Martin Ware say it. I've heard very well-known producers that have used it say it. Philip Taysom had 2 of them, and I think his one was the BBC's one. But yeah, it does. You listen to the samples, and I would say some of them are comparable with what you can get on, Spitfire and stuff like that. They really are that good. So,
well, I mean, I don't know how you can even say that. It's not like you have a Fairlight sitting behind your head or anything there.
No. Well, the right. So the caveat to that is that the Series 2, which is the one behind my head, that one there, is the one that is the best fun. It's just a wonderful operating system with not so much the light pen, because the light pen, apart from sort of loading sounds and that, if you can be drawing waveforms is an absolute, it's a non-event really. It doesn't, you draw a waveform and then another one, it looks great, you play a key and it goes, you think, well, that's taken me 25 minutes, it sounds crap. So I don't think anyone ever really used that part of it, but it looks good. And bearing in mind, we're talking, that was 1979 tech. So it's great fun to use. It's so simple, and again, you've got the 8-bit sound, which is wonderful. It sounds like all the stuff that we've heard in the past, and so it's great fun. The Series 3 is a completely different beast. It's much more of a production thing, and it's got it's done film work. I mean, God, you just got to listen to the Terminator stuff that what's his name, Brad Fiedel did, and it's a mind-blowing thing. And Hans Zimmer as well, but Hans Zimmer's used them both. Hans Zimmer had a Synclavier, he may even still have one. Interestingly, Benny Andersson from ABBA still has his Synclavier. I think quite a few people still have them. Whether they actually switch them on or not, I don't know, because you have to wait about 10 minutes for the thing to boot up. But once it has booted up, it's great. But I haven't gone through all the sounds of it. I've got pages and pages and pages and pages. I have a pad behind me where I've written down, I don't know, maybe 100 sounds, and then I got bored. So I just stopped really. And then other things come out, which I have a very sort of I don't know really. I have a limited interest span of stuff, which is probably why I've got so many stuff, because I get bored with it after 10 minutes and then, oh, that's come out, I'll have to buy one of those. And no, I'm joking. I mean, I do love the Synclavier. Keeps the room warm as well.
Let me see if I can pull this up here.
You think I'm kidding, Tim? It does.
No, I totally understand. It's like an SSL console.
Yeah.
It's a power soaker, and I'm sure it heats the whole house.
I have to be, in here I've got air conditioning, so I have to be a little bit careful when I turn it off, because the power supplies in there, it's got, at the back of it, I think it's got 5 or 6 big, heavy power supplies. And, the capacitors in there, sort of, what they do is they set off the the RCD thing I've got in the studio, you know, the sensitive electrical trip switch type of thing. So if I power it off in the wrong sequence, the whole studio goes dark because it just trips out. So, but yeah, it's
You're a
bit of a beast. It weighs a ton as well. So, hence I haven't moved it.
That was my dream synth right there. When it you know, I don't really even call it a synth as so much as like a sampler workstation. But when that thing came out, I was like, how in the world can I ever get to a point where I could have one of those?
I know.
And the truth was, I couldn't, especially in 1980 whatever. I'm thinking maybe 86, 87.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I think that's about the right sort of ilk. Yeah, I think they were about over here. They were about the system I've got behind me was maybe £200,000, and we're talking 1985, 86, £200,000. That's a lot of money. I mean, the Fairlight 3 was £60,000, and that was a good flat in London. You could have bought then.
Yeah.
So yeah, but they're two completely different machines. You know, I didn't realise that they would be so different. And I say the quality of the Synclavier is. Yeah, it's better. It's a lot better. The interesting the actual VPK itself is very nice as well. I'm lucky enough to have one of the weighted Fairlight keyboards for the Series 3. The one, as you see behind me, is not that one. I've got one upstairs that I have, but the VPK is actually the same weighted piano action as the Prophet T8. They bought the keyboards from Sequential, and the little buttons, the red buttons on the VPK, these little red buttons here are off of a I think a B-52 bomber. They're out the airplane. So, you know, it's beautifully built. The case is lovely, mahogany, and they did a black one as well that was nice and sort of piano wood, black, shiny. It was lovely. So you got your money's worth. But nevertheless, you know, part with that type of money.
But nevertheless,
just to put that into perspective, $200,000 in what, 1983?
That no, a bit later. This one is from 85, 86, but yeah, it's still 86. A lot of wedge.
I mean, the inflation rate. I mean, in today's dollars, it's over $500,000, $545,000.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is the price of a house, you know.
Right? Yeah, it's well over price. Well, yeah, I mean, and a good house back then, a good house. Yeah. So, and when I got it. It didn't. Oh, Cryss, is Cryss gone? When I got it, anyway.
Hi, Cryss.
What did I say? Yeah, it didn't work. The FM side of it worked, and I took it apart because I've repaired my Fairlights because they bomb out every so often, cards and things and those. And so far, you know, power supplies. I've been. Say, you know, most of this sort of stuff I can do myself, but I opened up the Synclavier and just thought, oh my god, it's just masses and masses and masses of ribbon cables and cards, and there's absolutely no backup in the UK because the Synclavier group is run by Cameron Jones and Mitch Marcoulier, and sadly Mitch has not been too well. So I couldn't really get any help of him. There was one guy in the UK, but he's gone AWOL. So I literally had to sort of go from ground up. And yeah, it took me a while, but touch wood, she works.
So I wanted to get in. Sorry, it popped me out there for a second. But this should
yeah, we were all going, something we said?
Yeah.
So that's an old pick.
That's if this works, but at least you can, for people to be able to see a little bit behind where you're sitting, where the Synclavier is. But some of the fun stuff in there that you were talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and that's cool the white keyboard in the middle of is the John Bowen Solaris, which You know, that's another one of my favorites. I've been a good talk in terms of John over the years. And there's my T8, which is sort of buried there. The Prophet 10, the original Prophet 10, because I've just got
right there.
I got a Rev 4 because Marshall's got one, so I thought I've got to go and get one.
Yeah, of course.
Well, yeah.
Get one too, man.
Yeah. And interestingly, I didn't realize. I mean, yeah, getting on prices. I'm sure everyone's been hit by the same inflated prices, but Moog ones here in the UK now are over £10,000.
Wow.
Now, yeah,
Whoa.
right. Yeah, it's big money. It's big money.
That makes me wonder. I wonder how much they are locally.
Yeah.
Not as much as that.
Yeah. I
But
know
we
they
have-
went up a little bit, but man, 10 grand.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
I think, what do they new now? Like $9,000 or something?
I think $9,000. Yeah.
That's
Right,
Yeah, just
so
a cool $9,000.
that's still,
8 voice, right? Or whatever.
yeah.
Here we go. I got it right here. It's from the Sweetwater.
Oh, yeah, but you got tax on that, right? Well, do you pay? No, if yes, I get. So how does it work? If you get that shipped to a different state, like I don't know where Sweetwater are, but if they ship to one of your states, Florida or wherever, or to you, Chris, wherever, do you pay state tax? You still pay it?
So fortunately, when I got my Moog 1, there was no tax at that time, so I saved a lot of money on it that way.
Yeah.
That was when it was first released, but now Sweetwater takes tax, or the California government takes
Does
tax, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way it worked was if you purchased something online and they didn't have a physical like warehouse in your state, then you didn't get charged
That's it.
the tax on that. But
Not anymore.
that's not the case anymore, and luckily most of the stuff I bought was before all that as well. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
moving
I
forward,
think-
we're all gonna get nailed with the
Because
tax.
it's really interesting, actually. Moving on to the Oberheim. See, I couldn't believe it watching you guys not being able to get the OBX8 when they were plentiful over here. Now, the flip side of that coin is I've just ordered and got one of the new Mini Moogs because I just wanted to a new Mini Moog. I know it's a ton of money, but I saw Brian's one and just but you can't get them over here. There's a 4-month waiting list for them.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's crazy.
and it is crazy. And again, we've all got our own opinion on why Moog are doing this. I hope no one from Moog's watching what I'm about to say, but I've just got a feeling they've looked at the second-hand market and thought, we're missing out on a ton of money here, boys, because even the reissues were going up to stupid money, but they were over in the UK. I'm not too sure what they were doing in the States.
Yeah, they were going for about double the retail price.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Well, could we
Moogs-
not say that about the OBX8 too? I mean,
I don't. Well, I think I'm not too sure what an OBX8 is now. Mine was about 4.7 English pounds when I got it, brand new. I don't know what they are in the States. What are they about? Same in the States in dollars?
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
right about
that.
advertised for $5,000.
$5,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's. I guess that's. It's still new. It's still fresh. Everyone wants it.
Yeah, it's
I saw tonight it's
$4.99.
won another award, isn't it? The Tech Award. So, but yeah, I don't know what Moogs, why they discontinued the original model.
I don't know either. That's I got lucky, I think, because I bought mine towards the end of the run.
Right.
No, they never said it was going to be limited run, and they just one day were like, "Yep, that's it. That's all we're making."
Yeah.
I
I
think-
mean, again, I heard an unfounded rumor that it was because they were running short components, which I thought,
That's- Yeah, that's what I heard too. But who knows?
But this new one, if you look on their website, it says it's not limited. But when you watch them, and the speed at what they're putting it together, it's just like, God. I mean, but they're selling over here. Everyone's sort of gasp at the price, and they're selling because the back orders for them over here are Yeah, they're pretty long.
I mean, I would love to have one, but I just can't put out $5,000 for a mini Moog. But the possibly good thing about it, though, is that it might bring some revenue in for them. And the things that I really need from Moog right now are updates for the Moog 1 and the Matriarch. Let's work on some firmware. At least divert some of that money into that instead of, trinket synths and.
Yeah, they haven't done anything for the Matriarch for a while now, have they?
No, they've been pretty quiet. I mean, they did the plugins recently.
Yeah. I there's one that I haven't turned on for a while. In fact, I found this one sound in there. I actually have to say I got the idea from Loopop. It's all patched from where he told me to patch it. It's a really great sound, but it hasn't. I haven't changed the patching in that for probably about 2 years. But I love it. And I love the color scheme of it as well. See, we've got the same color. Do you have a Matriarch, Marshall? Do you have a Matriarch? Or I don't know if you
have. The only semi-modular instruments I have is an MS-20 Mini, and it's got the same bass patch on it that I've left on there for several years. So same.
Yeah.
And then the ARP 2600.
Because you got one of those. You were really lucky getting one of those.
Oh yeah, my guy hooked me up at Sweetwater, man. I don't know how he got that for me, but holy cow! Get one of those full size ones. Oh man, it's pretty amazing.
I wanted one, but unfortunately they all fell into the wrong hands of cowboys that just put them up for inflated prices. Really.
Yeah.
So never mind. Some you win, some you don't.
Your vintage one will have to do you.
Yes, I mean, I absolutely love that. And isn't it bizarre that you and I have got exactly the same model? And there's so many iterations of them out there.
I think we figured that it was within a couple of months. They were both made within a couple of months or something.
That's right. Yeah.
It was really close.
Yours is in substantially better condition than mine, because my one was gigged by a guy called Gary Mobley, who was the he was the keyboard player for the Sweet. They were a glam rock band in the in the 70s, and he went out and bought that brand new in 73, 74. But it works. When I first got it, it didn't, and Cryss and I have been speaking about how poorly made they are inside. They such a shame, isn't it? And when you think that every component in there is the crappiest pot, the crappiest everything.
And worse than the components are the traces in the circuit boards. My gosh, I thought Electro Harmonics cheaped out on everything in the 70s. I mean, they're pretty junky. You look inside one of them, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't believe that this thing still works. And in fact, a lot of them that I got were ones that would have been broken and I fixed. But yeah, when I started getting into the 2600, it was quite a shock, because I had started. I did the power supply, which was not hard, but the preamp circuit in there, that whole module, starting to work on it and replace the caps and stuff, and was like, oh, I have to be really careful, because I can really mess this thing up in a hurry. It was pretty shocking.
Yeah, so I'd love to actually have a look inside the modern one, but just have a modern one where the pots don't crackle and it, everything feels nice and new. But anyway, I never got one. I was very upset. My friend Ty's got one. He's got one, and Marshall,
Yeah, maybe I'll crack mine open and let everyone see. I have a feeling it's all surface mount. It's probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they sound great. I mean,
it sounds amazing.
Yeah. No, they are good.
So, one of the big topics that we wanted to cover is like some of these new reissues coming out. So there's a lot of chatter online about reissue Mini Moog, OB X8, the Prophet 5 and 10, and there's so many great synthesizers. Things that we have not seen in production in many decades, many years. So 40 years. And one of the things that you and I have talked about a lot, like when we've got together and just calling on the phone and whatnot, is like how they stack up, and that's been a lot of my questions to you because again, you have in many of these cases old ones, originals, and you've picked up new ones. Perhaps you could start just tell us what are some of the ones that you've got both of the reissue and the original, and I would love to get your take and all of us talk about how are they stacking up, what's better, what do you like about the new ones, what do you like about the old ones, in cases that we can do those comparisons. Would love to really kind of get into this.
Okay. Well, the list of what I've got, I've obviously got the original Oberheims. I have the Expander, which is basically a 6-voice Matrix 12. I have an OBX, an OBXA, an OB8. I have the little 2-voice mono, and I have the OBX8 as you know. I have the reissue Mini Moogs and the originals, which are, in fact, that one here is the Welsh Mini Moog. I don't know if you guys know what the Welsh Mini Moog is, or anyone in the chat knows what the Welsh Mini Moog. If you don't know what the Welsh Mini Moog is, a guy over here called Alex Winter, back in the end of the 90s, or well, I suppose it must have been a bit earlier because he actually made that in 99. He acquired legally the name from Norlin, who were the original distributors of Moog back in the 70s, of the name Moog. And his initial premise was he wanted to go and make modules for the modular systems and start that, but then he decided that he was going to put the Mini Moog back into production. So he came out with that, which is known as the Welsh Mini Moog. Roughly speaking, I think there's less than 20 of them made because it was so expensive. But it sounds amazing. It's different to a Mini Moog in that it's got pulse width modulation. It's got pretty much all the same controls, a few extra controls, but one thing it has got, which I absolutely love, on the back of it, it's got dip switches where you can change the envelope to re-triggering, because the Mini Moog's envelope generator at the end of it is not re-triggering. This one is. So it's a must. But it's lovely. It's really rare. So that's really nice. So one thing about the Mini Moog that I've always why didn't they give you the option to re-trigger the? In fact, the even the Voyagers don't do it either. It's a bit of a
found this article from.
Oh, you got it. Well done.
1998, talking about this. So Mini Moog 204E, and it talks about the Welsh company that made it. That's interesting. I didn't know about this. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of. I did a little bit of research because they were made by a company over here that makes organs, and one of the directors is still going. The original company folded, and I sent him emails. I've sent various people over here, Gordon Reed, who writes for a magazine called Sound on Sound, or used to, asking do they know how many were made, because there was a rumor about there's only 5 of them out there, and I'm pretty convinced that, again, speaking to this guy, he seems to think there was 2 runs. Problem was that I think it was about £1,600 back in 1999, and back then an original Mini Moog with MIDI would set you back £700, so it didn't sell that well,
right?
And he basically stopped doing it. So I have the Mini Moog reissues. I've very recently just got the Prophet 5 reissue. I'm going to stick my neck out and say that the Prophet 5 is probably my favourite synth of all time. Not because it sounds the best, not because it is the best, because the originals were pretty ropey, as we all know. But I just got to know it so well back in the 80s. My original one was a Rev 2, which was so bad you turn it off, come back to it another day, and all the sounds would be wiped out. So I had to reprogram it literally every time I turned it on. So I got to know the machine really well.
Yeah.
And interestingly, when I got my Rev 4, it's in the house on my desk at the moment, because I just go up to it and I can still remember a lot of the sounds that I programmed in it. One of them is a simulation of what I call a guy pissing in a subway, and it's basically white noise and pink noise, with a bit of reverb, and it does sound like a guy just having a slash in a subway into a puddle and that. But all the orchestral strings and stuff like that, I put back into it. But I also have a Rev 1, which is a little bit sick at the moment. It did work, and it then died, which all Rev 1s do. But when it did work, it sounded just amazing. I would say that the emulation of the Curtis filter is probably very good. I would say, from what I remember of my Rev 1, that the SSM filter emulation is not what I remember my Rev 1 sounding like. And also, what I would say is, anyone that's got a Rev 4, when you put it to vintage mode 1, it's all over the place. The Rev 1s are definitely not that bad. That's so overkill, it's ridiculous. So they don't sound that bad, really. I promise you they don't. And if I get mine going, which I'm hoping I can get it going again, but I'm getting help with that. It's one of the ones that I'm getting help with. I'll but yeah, the Oberheim. So starting with, I mean, where do you want to start? We'll look at the OBX 8, I suppose, because we've all got
I mean, let's talk about that. And also, none of us have had hands on, but we could also throw the Behringer UBXA, or whatever it's called, into the mix as well, because there have been some sound clips, some really good sounding, some really bad. That what was it? What's the shop? Anderton's or Tillman? One of those had.
Anderton's.
Yeah, that one was kind of a bad video, but I don't think the recording of it was that great, because some of the other demo stuff has been much better. But I mean, let's talk about those, because there's or at least going to be, options now, which there have not been options as far as getting a newer Oberheim sounding synth, unless you're going, digital emulation or something. But I mean, what are your thoughts on these? So the three of you guys have an OBXA. You all three own one. I have spent about a month with one, but I don't own it. And so I thought maybe that would be a good place to start. Like, what do you think of it? How does it compare? Jump into it.
Oh, what do I think of it? I think it's amazing. I mean, we're so lucky to get Marcus. It's Marcus's baby.
Yeah.
Tom's had, I think, in his own words, he's had a little bit of cosmetic input into it. In fact, the color of it is Tom's idea, not Marcus's. So it's the first synth that sounds like an Oberheim. The OB6 sounds like an Oberheim, but it's not an Oberheim. It's got an Oberheim, I suppose it's an Oberheim filter or that sort of design on it, but it doesn't sound as much like an Oberheim as the OBX8 does. So if you want the sound of an Oberheim, definitely the OBX8 sounds like an Oberheim. What do I think of it? There's so many things about it now that I've had it for a while that I can honestly say I wish they'd done. The thing that annoys me the most about it is that they didn't put the 4 bank buttons on it, A, B, C, D, because I don't know if you guys have found this, but when you go, all right, let me go back a bit. So how the Oberheim works is you have 4 banks, A, B, C, D, and then you have 1 to 8, and then you can press button A and B together, and then A, B, C together, A, B, C, D, or A, B, and then D, And the way that you can alter the combination of bank A, B, C, and D in any double, triple, or all four gives you 120 sounds, 120 presets. On the OBX8, this is done by a rotary knob, and it makes no chronological sense when you turn the rotary knob. It goes A, B, then it goes something like B, C, D, A, all over the place. And I can't get my head around why they've done it in the way and you can't change it. It's the way that they do it. If you can change it, then I haven't found a way that you can. If you look at the front panel of it, there's a load of space over on the left-hand side where they could have put some other. I just find that very frustrating. Also, what a great idea of putting an OLED on it. I'm all in favour of that, but don't put one on it the size of a bloody postage stamp.
Right.
I'm the first to say that. I'd struggle with looking at that OLED. The other thing that really hacks me off is the filter button. So if you press, it's one of these multi-press buttons, with two LEDs on it, and I think it goes filter from the OBX to the OBX-A to the OB8 and then back again. Well, why couldn't you turn it off, have a fourth press, and go to the SEM filter? Because the SEM filter on it, in my opinion, is the best filter out of all of them. That's the one I use. Just things like that, rather than going into menu diving. I'm not a great fan of menu diving. I never have been, really. Yeah, I mean, okay, if you need to menu dive, fair enough. But to me, I think menu diving in this day and age of designing synths is a bit of an afterthought.
I kind of felt there's so much real estate. So, compared to like the OB6 or something, like a very small screen is a hell of a lot better than just a numerical screen on there. So at least I can see some stuff. I can set some things up. I don't have to remember like cryptic key presses, hold this key, put your elbow on these three keys and turn a knob and you'll get to the thing that you want. Like, I'm never going to remember that. So at least it has a screen and that has been so important. And it also gives you the ability to add some firmware upgrades that maybe open up other functions, like, maybe we'll have at some point like a negative envelope or something like that. So that would be great. But with that panel, like you said, there's so much space on it. I had it set out here. So where this stuff is here is usually where my Moog 1 is. But I cleared it off and I had put the OBX8 there. And one of the things I noticed, it's huge. It's gigantic. It's not as deep as the Moog 1, of course, but it's very long. And you've got so much space, and especially on the left-hand side, I feel like there's a balance. I believe that they were shooting for, where it's to have a vintage aesthetic to it. But the problem is that I would take the functionality over it. Obviously they're not keeping a strict vintage aesthetic because it's got a screen, and I'm totally cool with that. But I kind of agree with you. Like, it would have been nice with a bigger screen. The Moog 1 screen is like amazing to sit and work with because everything is only like a layer deep, so you're not having to scroll forever because you can see everything on the screen. They're like, oh, okay, there it is. That's what I want to do. But some of the functions, you constantly have to go to that menu to get to things where they could have just had one more knob up there. And it almost feels, for the amount of space it takes up on a desk, it's getting close to the Moog 1, but the Moog 1 has, I don't know what the difference in numbers are between the two, but it has a lot more knobs, and I don't feel crowded at all on it. In fact, it feels more comfortable because I can move short distances to things that I'm working with without having going to the menu so much. Kind of how I had felt about that, with the screen and with the knob layout.
Yeah, there's it's all well and good trying to keep it as original, or parts of it as original as possible, but I think they left out a really important part of it there. And I don't know if I'm sure you guys have seen that there's a company over here called Synth Overlays, and they're doing the blue pinstripe overlays, but they've got a lot of the page 2 stuff. I mean, I might be wrong, I think there's 41 pages of page 2 that you've got to go through on that tiny OLED screen. And I just think, all right, 41 pages or 41 options of page 2, some of which you don't need on the front of the machine, but the synth overlay guys have actually put a lot of that on their front panel. That's what the OB8 did, because page 2 first appeared on the OB8. It's an Oberheim thing that and the later OB8s actually have it stenciled on the front panel. The silk screening has got the page 2 stuff underneath, so you know what's there. And albeit there's a hell of a lot more options on the OBX8, but
so real quickly, so explain page 2 if somebody doesn't know what it is. I mean, there's things that within the OBX8 you could just do through the menu, but on the original OB8, button pressed, and then it allowed you to turn knobs and press buttons for more features. To understand that correctly?
Yeah, exactly that, Chris. It basically, so you've got a front panel of potentiometers and the panel buttons, and you press page 2, and it basically gave you a sec. It basically changed the front panel to a completely different front panel. It's just basically a way of saving space rather than having double the amount of buttons. You're using the same buttons, but you access it via page 2. And I say, there's certainly not that many on the OB8 I can remember, but it's things like voice defeat and MIDI and all the other bits and pieces. And I think I can't remember, there's different envelopes you can select, but you can see what you're doing. Whereas there's 41 pages. I mean, some of the things on page 2 are brilliant because for whatever reason, Oberheim decided that on any of their synths, I don't know about the Matrix 12, but on the front panel, there was no mixer control for the oscillators. You either had oscillator 1 on, half on, or off, and the same with oscillator 2. But now on the OBX8, through page 2, you can actually turn a pot and adjust it as you want it, which great. Took them 40 years to do it, but brilliant. But yeah, getting back to the sound, look, there's no synth out there that is perfect for everyone. It's an impossibility. But getting back to the fundamental basics, and only my opinion, when I got it out of the box, turned it on, and I fiddled about with it, tried straight away to program it in the same way that I program my older machines, predominantly the OBX, because it's my favorite out of all of them by quite a significant way. It sounds like an Oberheim, full stop, and that's what you want. It definitely sounds like an Oberheim. So whereas I've always tried to remain on the fence with Behringer. I don't think the UBXA sounds like an OBXA whatsoever, even in the better demonstrations. But I do think it sounds like a really good synth.
Yeah.
So I think I've said it in the past. Why call it the UBXA? Because just call it the Deep Mind 20 or something, and it's a really good sounding synth. But it don't sound like an OBX8. Not to me anyway. But the OBX8 does.
And there you go.
What do you guys think?
I think Behringer has they're kind of hit and miss on some of their clones, right? I saw they were recently teasing a Jupiter 8 voice. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
The paraphonic version.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a single voice thing. like a
yeah. I think it's paraphonic in a little Euro rack case.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's like I'm glad though, because I think them doing some of these clones has really kicked these other companies into gear with doing some reissues. Like I'm pretty sure that's why we got Prophet 5 and 10 reissues finally, and probably the Oberheim as well. So there's some good in that. I just I guess it is what it is.
Yeah, and aside from the Behringer stuff with which I'm not familiar, back in the day I would borrow two different buddies of mine that were really fantastic keyboard players. One had the OBX and one had the OBX-A, and so I would every so often, convince them to let me run off with one of them for a week or so.
Oh, nice.
And especially with the OBX-A, I was able to I had this piece of music I had written a few years before that and had never done anything with. And once I bought that synth, it was so inspiring and so beautiful sounding. And while I had it, I went ahead and put this piece of music, laid it down in a recording studio. So I really got to know the sound of that. The OBX-A, and then the X to a lesser extent. But I will say that as soon as I got the X8 and opened it up and, started to play it, I mean, it sounded exactly like what I remembered. Now, memory isn't perfect, but like those synths had such a thing, and they were always one of my favorite synth sounds, just the whole Oberheim tone. And what was capable on those synths was always one of my favorite things, not to mention some of the music that was created with them. But
yeah, I
just always thought, what a beautiful sounding, musical sounding synth, almost organic at times, and just, wow, what a badass synth. So as soon as I opened up the X8, I thought, oh, okay, yeah, this is what I remember. And so I've been extremely excited to have that synth now and get to mess with it, because to me it delivers everything that was exciting, inspiring about the older synths, the original ones.
Yeah.
See, over in England, we the Oberheims were very difficult to hear. First time I heard an Oberheim was in '85. I bumped into this guy we were in a music shop in a little town called Watford, and he said, "Oh, I've got an Oberheim system." Not believing him, I went back to his studio, and there it was, an OB8. He had a DX drum machine, and the sequencer hit one button, and this thing began to sing, and it was just amazing. The Oberheim sound is very different to the Prophet sound. The two complement each other very well. But I agree. I mean, there's something. It's really apples and oranges, really, with the way they sound. And they got close with it with the OB6. I mean, I thought the OB6 was the better of the two sounding synths out of that and the Prophet 6, only purely because I prefer the sound of the filter, and perhaps the presets in it are a little bit better, and but that's just my opinion. But the sound of the OBX8, anyone that doubts whether or not it's a real Oberheim, I would categorically say that it is 100% sounds like an Oberheim. And in terms of the OBX, it's very, very close to the OBX. It's not the same because it can't. You could put two OBXs next to one another, just like you put two Minimogs next to one another, just like you put two original Prophet 5s, and they're not going to sound the same. I think when you look at Dave Smith, God rest his soul, bless him, and he's sitting there and he's like, well, we got Prophet 5 originals here, and none of them sounded the same. Well, they're not going to sound the same because they've each, you got so many little trim pots in there which you adjust each envelope, each filter, each it's they're all calibrated. They all go out of their calibration after a little bit of time, so you're never going to get that. But
I was surprised
if you.
Yeah, I was surprised, like when Marcus Ryle did the video comparison of his original side by side with the new one. I mean, they were very close. I wouldn't have expected two vintage ones to sound as close as the X8 did with the original X or XA. They were shockingly close. I mean, they did of course sound different, but I mean, not to, I wouldn't say to a meaningful, difference in it.
No. And don't forget, again, the OB8 and certainly the OB8 was quite a stable machine. So I think a lot of the, I'm not too sure. I think Marcus said that the envelopes were done digitally, so maybe that's why. But so some of the sounds that it's going to replicate are going to be very close because they sound very stable on the OB8, not so much on the OBX. But it's good enough. I love it. I do love it. And I think I don't mean this in any disrespect to the machine at all, but I got bored with it. And the only reason I got bored with it, and this is a me thing, it's nothing to do with the synthesizer at all. I think I said this to you, Cryss. When I got my OBX8, I got this thing out of the box and thought, right, okay, I'm going to try and program it exactly some sounds that I put on the OBX. And I was doing this, and I've done a bank of about 40 or 50 sounds. And then I thought, well, I've already done this because I've done it over the years on my OBX8 and my OBXA, my OBX. So I've already done this thing. So it's buried back there now. And I'm only saying that because it's that close.
Yeah. It was nothing new for you, which is good.
No, yeah, it's again, I'm not saying that I would get rid of it because I wouldn't, I love it, but for me, I tend to, once I've seen it and done it, and I've done it for a long time, then I don't need to, do it again, and it will get used as and when. My thing at the moment I'm using is behind me, which is the third wave, because that's that's basically a modern day PPG and an analog synth. That's got the same SSI 2041 filter chips in it that the OBX8 has got in it as well, and I'm sorry, the Prophet 5 Rev 4, I beg your pardon. So it sounds great, something different. But don't be put off by me being, well, I just said, being silly about I don't use it so much now. I used it the other day, and I've done a software update on it, and I don't know what the software update has done. I can't see any difference at all. But it's if you buy an OBX8, and a lot of people now selling their Moog ones, I think I've seen a couple of guys on Facebook selling the Moog ones, saying, which one should I keep or which one should I get? They're buying the OBX8 and they're falling in love with it immediately.
Yeah,
it's a great synth, honestly, it really is. And I don't think $5,000 for a synth of that caliber is bad money. It's a lot of synth.
And it's a situation where, for me personally, the reason why I buy a lot of these reissues is because I've never had the opportunity to even see an original. And some really great sounds were made on these, and I kind of want to see what I can do with them. And so I'm really happy that they've gone through and put these out. And it's even better to hear that, especially someone like you, Sai, who's got access to some of the originals there and knows them very well, that they nailed it in terms of the sound. So
yeah,
awesome.
I think that's a very that's a really I think that sums it up. Really, they have nailed it. Really, I don't think, other than my griping about a few things, cosmetics doesn't bother me. I mean, a lot of people are going out buying these overlays. It's not something I actually quite like, the grey, because my one at the moment is sat on top of the OBX, and the two of them look just awesome together.
I'm the same way. Like everybody's different, and obviously my OB6 has the blue stripes, which people complain about the blue stripes on that one, but they really want the blue stripes on the OBX8, which I find funny. But everybody's got different tastes, but I kind of like that, and totally respect that people like the blue stripes also. Some of those overlays look really nice. In fact, I think my buddy just got the overlays in yesterday, and is going to put them on his OBX8.
Yeah.
I was wondering, Marshall, since you and I have not had the old synths as much as these guys. I've had old Roland and I have old ARP, but no Oberheims or sequential. None of that old stuff. And for someone like you that's got a lot of modern synths, and now you've added a reissue of a Mini Moog, 2600, Prophet 10, I think, and the OBX8. How do you find like these reissues coming from a lot of the other synthesizers you have, like the Quantum or the Moog One, things that are tremendously more flexible, different tone, of course. But what's your like big take on it?
Well, I really like having the option to go to something that sounds more vintage, and the modern digital stuff is really cool too for its own kind of thing. But they play really nice together. So having the options there is really what I like. And we were talking earlier about why have so many synthesizers. Well, that's part of the reason. There's different flavors with some of these machines, and when you have a vast difference in architecture, something like a Quantum versus a OBX8, they're just completely different, and they can. You're not gonna get something as lush or whatever on a Quantum, but you can get some really crazy, cool sounds out of something like that. But you go to the Oberheim for some bread and butter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I really like having the option to choose and to combine some more modern stuff with some more vintage style tones. Even though these are modern reissues, the goal of them is to emulate the originals. So, and I think with the ones I have, they've done a great job. We just need to convince Roland to do the same thing, and then I'll do
Yeah.
I'm afraid the closest you're going to get on that is Broland.
Right. And Roland's done a good job with their digital emulation, the ACB stuff that they were doing. But it would still be nice to have a Jupiter 8 reissue. I mean, I don't know anybody who would be upset if they put something like that out,
Yeah, and they would have years worth of synthesizers to put out, and that their design. I know they would do different internal layouts and surface mount parts and stuff like that, just like Sequential has done.
Exactly.
But why not? I mean, you release a Jupiter, and then we can do the Junos, and we can do the JX3P and the 8P and the Jupiter 4, like they're doing with Roland Cloud. I mean, you could have years worth of stuff ready to go.
I've always wondered what this fascination with the Jupiter 8 is. It's got this mythical. It's like people think that you press a couple of buttons and a genie's going to come out and just bing. I'm going to make the biggest revelation and disappointment. Guys, it ain't that good a synth. It's just it ain't 20, 30 grand's worth of synth, I promise you.
Yeah.
No. Really ain't. Oh, my brother just bought the Jupiter X, and he said, "You got to come and have a listen to this." And I'm playing this thing in his front room, and you've got the drums that just sound amazing. This you press one note and it does an auto sort of bass line and fill and blows the Jupiter 8 out of the water. in terms of functionality.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, and any of these old synths, you know, you get them out of the box and you play them without any compression or EQ or effects on them, they sound shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but when you do though, I mean I think with things like the Jupiter or the CS80, I mean they've acquired kind of a mythic status.
Yeah.
And when you play it, you're kind of put into perspective of what it actually is, but then I think what it actually is still really great, and when you put it into the mix, that's why they become so popular. I mean, I've played. We were talking about it earlier. I've played just about everything as far as vintage guitars go. I mean, you name a year and a classic guitar, and I played it. Like 54 Strat, 52 Tele. I've played a 59 Les Paul. You know, that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it's like, you know, that's the Jupiter or the CS80 of the guitar world. I mean, that's the holy grail. And when you play it, it's like, this is a great guitar. Is it worth, $500,000? No, but it's a really fantastic guitar, and there's a reason why these became so popular. But, perhaps in the days where, things are kind of prepackaged, sounds, and it's polished ready for your record, and you come to some sort of raw device like that, whether it be an old guitar or an old synthesizer, the thing is, like, you got to sit and you got to work it and you got to finish doing the sound design. It's not just the sound design of pressing the button and pulling up the preset. Like, there's other things you got to do to massage that tone, but when you do, I don't know, man, they're pretty epic.
Yeah. You have to show everyone, Cryss and I told Cryss that I saw this guitar come up on Facebook. Now, I can't play a note of guitars, but I saw this guitar and I just wanted this guitar. Have you got a picture of it, Cryss? Because this came up on a shop in the UK and I fell in love with it. That guitar is basically it's got an overlay picture of the London. It's like the Metro in the US. It's called the Underground. It's an underground map, and it's just basically the central part of the map they've taken away and put it on this guitar. And I thought, I've got to have that on my wall. So I rang the shop up, and someone had beat me to it. Now, it's limited edition. The guitar's not that. I don't think it's a particularly good guitar. It's not a crap guitar, but it's not a.
It's a mid-grade.
Yeah. But I just saw that and thought, oh shit, I've got to have that on my wall. That would look so great. And Cryss and I were talking about this. If you got a guitar, don't hide it on the bloody floor. Hang it up on the wall, because they just look so cool. Exactly, just look so cool. Anyway, so I saw this thing and I just wanted it. So if anyone's got one of these guitars, I know where I can get one. I want one badly. So I'm not only a synth geek. I just get the urge sometimes. Oh, I already like that, and I didn't.
Yeah,
that would be.
That'd be brilliant on the wall.
Yeah.
By the way, can I show a picture of your new Prophet?
Oh yes, please. So I just put it up, and So I wanted one with a really nice case on it and nice wood grain, and I'd seen a couple come up, and I even asked my local dealers. I said, "Listen, I'll buy a Prophet 10 off of you." One, because I wanted to try the Rev 4, but I didn't want one. Some of the cases don't look so sweet. Anyway, this one came up, and I thought, Jesus, I've got to get that. It was an 8-hour round trip in the UK to get this thing. The guy had it maybe 2 months or so. Boxed everything, and this guy was into modular stuff. He was well into the modular stuff, and he wanted to sell it to buy components. He built his own modular stuff. He's got walls of this stuff. Really interesting guy, actually. So I got my Prophet 10, and the case on it is just exquisite. I thought, wow, I've got to have that.
When they show the photos, like I noticed the OBXA advertisements where Tom is sitting with one, and they've got the most blinged out one, and it's got like the nicey flamey sides on it. It's like gorgeous, and I go, even at the NOM show there was nothing that looked like that, and they tend to look better than the Prophet cases. But I have to say, like, I have not seen an advertisement of a Prophet 5 or 10 that has looked as beautiful as this one. I mean, that's tops.
Yeah. It is nice, isn't it? I mean, it's not for everyone. I mean, some people don't like the wood grain in it like that, but I did. I mean, again, you know, Moog did it with the Moog 1. Some of the cases on them, some of these guys have got this beautiful grain on the cases, and yeah, it's just hitting, you know, luck of the draw, isn't it? When you open the boxes. But I thought, you know, I want a nice case on it. So, but I got this thing, and I have to say, I've been having a lot of fun with it, and really enjoyed watching Dan last week. Really enjoyed that. His music. I then went on to his channel, listened to his music. I was really impressed with that. All the sort of John Carpenter stuff, of course, was done Prophet 5, Prophet 10 back in the day, and a multitude of other stuff. Love it. But I personally would only say that I definitely agree with the sentiment. I think, Marshall, you said it. If you got one, get the additional voice board, because the note ceiling is pretty drastic. And talking about hidden menus, I've actually sort of now got used to software version 2. You know, the splitting of the keyboard. It's a little bit Heath Robinson. That's an expression. If you don't know what that means, it's a little bit cumbersome the way they've done it. But they don't really have an option, because there ain't no screen to tell you what's going on. So it's kind of like
that's where you use your elbow and 5 or 8 fingers.
It's just a little bit. You got to get your head around it, because when you split the keyboard, you got to make sure you're on sound A, and I think it defaults to B. And which side is B and which side is A again? I forget. And yeah, you know, it's like, wow. But it's great, because on the original Prophet 5, even the Rev 3, which was the more reliable of the two, first of all, when you turn it on, is that tune light coming to come on? Yeah, the tune light's coming on. Is it going to go off? You know, so it's great having a Prophet 5 there that I can now turn on and not worry about the thing, you know, just dying on me. Same with the OBX8. These are huge, big tick in the boxes. You know, anyone that's had the originals or thinking about getting an original, be prepared, because they always go wrong. But yeah, getting back to the Prophet 5, the stacking and the way that you've got this unison, poly unison control, and also you can assign a different amount of voices to unison, which is nice. And then if you hold the unison button down, you can detune the unison. Brilliant idea. But here's the thing, which again, lots of different things about the original Prophet 5 to the reissue. Okay, so all the Prophet 5 patches and sounds, I would say 90% of them, the modulation comes from the modulation wheel, right? It's not programmable. It was one of the worst things about the Prophet 5 that you couldn't program modulation from the pitch wheel. You could do on the Prophet 10, the original Prophet 10, because it wasn't wheel mod. It was, I can't remember what they call it now. It's a different, but it is programmable on the Prophet 10. But on the Rev 4, they've got a pot, and is it you'll have to look at yours, Marshall, because I haven't got mine here. Is it intensity? Does it say? Is it intensity? Anyway, it's programmable. It's programmable, and it's just the biggest thing that you can actually program modulation now without using the mod wheel on the Prophet 5. And initial amount. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, initial amount. Yeah, that's not on the original Prophet 5. Can't do that, and it's a real pisser, I'm telling you. The other thing which you can't do on an original Prophet 5 is glide portamento. You could only do that when you were in unison mode. You couldn't do it in poly mode. And Oberheim have had polyphonic portamento or polyphonic glide since the OBX. Brilliant addition. Yeah. So simple.
Yeah.
And there's only one more addition which if I could have it, and it really pisses me off. You come out with a $5,000 synth and a mono output. please. Come on. Oberheim stereo, man. Come on. Seriously. So I went out and bought an Eventide H9 effects thing, and this is inside because my Prophet 10 is on my in my office on the desk, and it gives it a stereo field, which is brilliant. And there are ways you can give it a stereo field, but I just think, anyone that's used to stereo and goes out and buys a Prophet 10.
Well, and like the OB6 at least has a mono out and a left and right.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
that would have been cooler. Yeah.
I kind of wonder.
I just don't understand why they didn't do it. They've added a few things on it, like velocity, aftertouch. Even these are great things to add. They kept the white, the pink noise, but Christ, why didn't you put a left and right output on it?
Yeah, I don't think anyone would have complained if they made it stereo.
Isn't it crazy? You spend $5,000 on a synth and you've got one output.
Yeah, I mean, it is nice to have the stereo spread stuff, and also being that you can do splits now on the Prophet, at least the Prophet 10, I know. It'd be nice to have two outputs to be able to hard pan, 5 voices and 5 voices, so you'd have them stacked, and that can create a really rich sound, but still be fairly in your face, and that's kind of a bummer. But I like the new OBX8 pan spread mode. I can't remember what it's called on it, but I'm hoping that they would add that to the OB6 as well, and if the Prophet 6 also, add that mode to them, because they've already done it and it sounds really good.
Yeah, because on the originals, because one of them, it's the OB8, I think, has got physical pots on the side where you can pan each voice. It's got 8 pots on the side. The OBX, it's stereo. Again, you can open it up inside and pan the top 4 voices one way and pan them the other way. It's a little bit sort of archaic, flipping the lid up to pan pots around, but you could do it. But just when you think, the OBX came out in 1979. It's polyphonic portamento. It's stereo. It's got so many things on it that the Prophet 5 should have had on it. And it's the one thing they kept. And I just think, don't know.
Yeah, it's nice that with the OBX8 that you're able to switch that stuff in the menu. Because at least they give you some different style sounds. Even when you dial in a patch that's fairly similar, going through some of those different stereo modes, it really changes the character of it. I mean, it can be really punchy in mono, but, very spacious. And, there's different uses for them. And it's nice not to be locked into just one single mode. I mean, if you're, with the mono output Prophet, and we're talking about this with Dan, if you're recording, it's not as big of a deal, because like what I mentioned, like doing the hard panned 5 and 5 voices is not a big deal when you're recording. In fact, I like doing that better sometimes, because it's just like what you do with tracking like heavy guitars. You hard pan, but you don't do the same guitar part in both speakers. You record one guitar part, and then you record the other guitar part, and they're 2 different performances, which themselves are, if you're a tight player, you can get them really close, but they're always a little bit of variation. And then that plus, with the synthesizer, with the variation between each of the voices and the calibration, having to those 2 stereo pans can be quite large. It's nice to be able to do that just at once. But of course, like Dan was mentioning, you can just pan them when you record. But that's for somebody that's in a DAW or some sort of tape recorder or whatever. Not for as much for the live performance, where you're just kind of, you got what you got.
Yeah, I guess I think as technology progresses, I think we all get spoilt for choice. And when something comes out that we don't have that choice, we kind of miss it. Having said that, I think, and I've tried it, putting a stereo mini Moog sounds awful. So some things do sound better with just a single out, but Like I said, you can't build a synth to please everyone.
Well, they want to be able to keep making new ones too, right? So
Mm.
you know,
Yeah,
at
and
least some people wanting more, I guess, in that way.
Yeah. Getting back to the Behringer stuff, though, again, they were going to come out with this Prophet 600 clone, and we saw it. And again, I thought that sounded fairly nice, and but they give us these teasers, then they take forever to come out. And I think this is the good thing with Sequential and Moog and Oberheim, and possibly to a lesser extent with even Waldorf. I just find it, look, put a carrot under your nose, but don't leave it going on forever and ever and ever. I mean,
For years.
the UBXA, where the hell is it? I mean, it's been...
I think I made a video about the UBX8 like in 2017 or something like that.
Yeah.
And
it's
it's
a long time ago. We heard the original, wasn't it? And then they I mean, it was like the because everyone's going to go nuts if and when they originally when they eventually come out with the CS80 thing. But I mean, and they've got a proper, I know component shortages and whatever, but they've got a proper factory apparently over in China.
Well, so that's what I was kind of wondering, and I don't know, what their setup is in particular, but I know that they were investing in their own infrastructure. I mean, with everything that's going on in the world, and obviously there's concerns about China and Taiwan, that we may not have stuff coming out of China at some point, and a lot of American computer companies have started making chips here, Apple being one of them, so that they're not, they won't, the same thing won't happen as what happened to Germany in the natural gas thing. So I would think that, a company like Behringer that has such a huge market share of synthesizers, that would be one of the things that they would try to nail pretty early on. Because obviously this whole situation has hurt them, and, there's tube factories that are down, we've got less of those for guitar amps, and just seems like there's opportunities there. And again, I'm not an expert. I don't know what's involved in getting that stuff going, but it seems like somebody would want to be investing in that more. And I mean, I know that they have, what's the Behringer chips that they were making? It's not Cool Audio. Is it the X5? Is that the ones that are made by Behringer? They own one of the chip companies, so.
Oh, it's a multi-million-dollar company. I think their turnover is it was about 300 million. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you'd think though that the R&D would be a little bit more forthcoming. As we said, that UBXA, when it first was announced some years ago, I know we've had COVID and da-da-da-da, but you can still work from home. Would have thought you'd get more done. The platform's got to be the same, because when you look at Sequential, they've just come out with this Trigon 6. Well, the platform was already there, wasn't it? So they can use that platform and crack on with it. So my question is, if they got the platform ready for the UBXA, the CS80, well then surely that's a building block, and it shouldn't take 5 years to do.
I wouldn't think so, but
you wouldn't, would you?
Yeah.
But it's like again over here, and again I don't know what suppliers like in the States. Usually you guys get stuff quicker because it's a bigger market, and we have to accept that. But Tim Shoebridge is the only guy I know that's managed to get a decent set. I don't know whether he's got the whole set, but he got a decent set of the 2500 modules from Behringer. Where the hell are they? You try and go on Thomann or Sweetwater and say, I want every 2500 module. I don't think you've got a Scooby. I really don't. I think you'd really struggle. But, well,
yeah, I mean, Wagyu's got them.
Wagyu's got them.
Yeah, and I think
Manny's
got the whole set. I think here in California.
Do you know how many are there for that to get a full set?
There's quite. I don't know how many.
Because I can only see 4 of them on Sweetwater right now. But I'm not a
Yeah, I
big
think Tim
molecular guy,
Shoeveridge
so I
had
have
more
no
than 4.
idea.
But I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. But you'd struggle
Well,
to get them over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hope that these shortages get cleared up, because I think people are getting a little bit antsy. But to make the best of the situation, though, like there's always the opportunity to try to work on your own skills as far as using the stuff that you have. And so, I mean, when I have the OBX8 here, like, gosh, I want one of those really bad. They sound amazing.
Well, you've still got one, Chris, except it looks like a very colourful guitar hanging up on your wall.
Yeah. Well, thankfully that was a lot less. The prices have gone up on those tremendously now. But but one thing I did while I was here. So the odd thing is that I didn't compare it to the OB6 because it was in the rack and I didn't pull it out. But I had gotten the Novation Summit at that time from a buddy, and so I had that on the table because I was playing it, and I had the OBX over here, and I was kind of going back. And what I tried to do is, because I had before the OBX8 came here, I had been working on a couple like Oberheim sounding patches, because that's one of my favorite sounds. It's just that OBX sound. And I had been working on a patch, and I thought, I was like, this is sounding pretty good. And I didn't compare it to my OB6 or anything else. It was just going by ear. And I got sat down with the OBX8. And after I'd spent some time working with it and programming, and got like, okay, I kind of know what this does. I understand what it is. And to go back to that patch, I'm like, okay, this is in the ballpark. This is really close. And then I did a few tweaks where, since I had the fortune to borrow one, I was able to dial it in as, I was able to hear both of them together, which made things significantly easier in that regard. But even before that, I had gotten that Summit dialed in like pretty close. I mean, the OBX8 sounded nicer, and I could probably work on that patch more if it ever comes back here and try to nail it. But that's one of the things too. I mean, that's one of the fun things about synthesizers is that, you're going to have a tough time getting a Strat to sound like a Les Paul. It's not going to happen no matter what you do. They just sound too different. But you can get in the ballpark with one synthesizer and another, and especially if that synthesizer has a lot of options for you to be able to craft the sound, different filters and things. So when you sit down and you've got a Hydra synth, there's so many things you can do with it, and different filters, and you can, and when you're on one of these synthesizers where you can adjust the envelope curves like the Moog one and others, you can get pretty close to the thing that you really want to get bad. And so if you don't have the money for that, that's one of the things that like I wanted to mention, because we're talking about stuff that's very expensive, and in reality, there's, compared to how many synth players there are in the world, there's very few that will be able to have those devices, those synthesizers. And so one of the fun things, I think, and one of the great things about synthesizers is that you can sit down with something that's far less expensive, like a Hydra synth, and if you're willing to put the time into it, you can get pretty close.
Yeah. I mean, we all... This comparison thing is let's be honest, it's down to personal choice. What do you want? Yes, you probably could get quite a lot of the sounds if you turn off all the bells and whistles on an OB6. You could get Oberheim-y sounding patches. I think it's a very capable synth. I think value for money, it's probably still the best synth that Dave Smith has brought out. But I would just say that the OBX8 is just that one step further. The OB6 is, how would I describe it? It's got the Oberheim sound, but it's not an Oberheim. The OBX8's an Oberheim. That's how I describe the OBX8. But they're different. So I think the two complement each other very well. Like when you don't want too much of any one synth, really. I think a variation is a good thing. Variety is a good thing. So
as you said, the complementary nature of them are going to help out. I mean, to me, you can do a bass sound on a Prophet, but that's not my favorite bass sound. I mean, maybe the Pro 1 or the Pro 3 or whatever would do it better, but it's like that thing's not going to be the greatest thing for bass. But, if you got something that's like a mini Moog or, something in that general vicinity.
Is that a Moog source you've got there, Tim?
It is.
That's got one of the meanest bass sounds on it. I've never owned one, and unfortunately, they're so expensive now. But that has got one of the best bass sounds on it, and what a great idea! It's programmable. I think it's one of the very few mono synths that are, apart from the Oscar, isn't it? Yeah, that's one of the ones that I wish I had got. Definitely.
That one, this particular one, belonged to my brother, who is a bass player, and so he and I played in a bunch of bands as we were growing up, because I was a drummer and he was a bass player, so we were a rhythm section together, and as we were growing up. But in the mid '80s, we'll just say, there was a lot of great cover songs to be played there, like in clubs and whatnot, that required synth bass. So, he was a regular string electric bass player, but because of all of that, he bought that source so he could cover some of those parts.
Yeah.
And he used it for a while, I don't know, maybe 3 years. And then, kind of, I don't know, I guess either lost interest in it, or I don't remember the history of why he then just put it in his closet. And so, about 87 or something, it went into his closet, and it sat there until about 10 years ago. And he said, "Hey, this Moog source is just sitting here. Do you want it?"
Wow. Wish my brother had one.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes, I very much do. So it's in pretty good shape, and I mean, it definitely everything's functional, and I've got the manual, and I've got even the little cassette that has the reload of the factory sounds on it, and it's pretty badass. It does sound close to a mini.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I think it's on a lot of the early Depeche records, and I think they used it up until maybe the early 90s for bass. I think it was Andy Fletcher's go-to synth. They loved it. So
and just having presets was amazing.
Oh God, yeah, for live stuff. I mean, it was a brilliant idea. Again, it's one of the ones that I had a chance to get, and I never did.
Well, you're doing all right.
Shame, but,
Isn't that? Yeah. There's no mini on that one, though, right?
What's the old saying? The grass is always greener on the other side. There's always. Listen, I mean, there's always something out there that you want. Cryss and I always sort of, yeah. Yeah. I feel better now.
That's better, right?
Bit sort of yeah. So yeah, but no, I think I don't know really. I mean, so moving on to the Mini Moog. I do like Mini Moogs. There's something about them because they look like old microwave ovens, don't they? Really, but they just, I don't know. They do, don't they? I mean, it's. I'm so pleased that they've done it. I mean, because again, Mini Moogs over here were very expensive, and I just like the sound of them really, and I still, get a buzz of just no presets, no tuning, just turning buttons, and it's a really in-depth little mono synth. And I think it's the best platform for if anyone wants to learn how a synthesizer works. Get a Moog, Mini Moog, or a
even like a Juno or something. I mean,
yeah, I don't know. It's too easy on a Juno, though, isn't it? It's too easy. You've only got to turn the thing on and hit a patch, and it's there. It's like these.
Yeah, but you put it into manual mode, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Because I mean,
no one does that, Cryss, do they? I mean, they just go, "Oh, patch 1, what does that say? Oh, that's really good. Oh, patch 2, that's brilliant. Oh, patch." I'm looking at these desktops now. I'm in front of me. I've got the desktop of the OB6 and the Prophet 6 here, and what have they got? 500 user, 500 factory sounds. The original Oberheim had 32 presets on it, and here I'm looking at a synth that's got 500 sounds on it. So why would you know? Yes, I mean, yeah, I always sort of write my own patches on new synths just to see what the synth is capable of and what I'm capable of. But if you're not inclined, out of those 500 sounds, you're going to find one that you like or one that you can edit. I would define anyone to turn on a brand new synth and go, I've been through 1,000 sounds and they're all shit. Don't happen. Don't happen, you know. So we're spoilt for choice really in that respect. So sometimes it's just nice to go back to, right, turn this thing on, it's going to be out of tune, I got to tune it and go from you know, basics. It's a great way to learn. And I guess, again, because I don't have the small modular stuff, I guess you know, when you're patching stuff in, and
I was going to say, you know,
I don't know. I obviously know that Tim has modular. You have it as well, Chris, do you?
Yeah, I've got some behind me. I don't think I'm gonna. Yeah, there's a little bit.
Oh, you do. Oh, is that the Waldorf thing? Is that the Waldorf?
That one? That's the Mantis, the Tip Top Mantis. That's actually my Eurorack case, but I have a Waldorf that's sitting over here that has my Model D plus some extra stuff like extra filters and things.
Is that the one where it's the case with the key bed?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. You have one of those? I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, I've had it for quite a while, and so because mini Moogs are, man, even when before they got crazy, so they were starting to dip there for a while they were still being, maybe just after they were being made. I can't remember what year it ceased, but my buddy got into synthesizers and he's like, hey, what's a classic that I should say? Grab this mini Moog. It was like $2,600 for a 2016 reissue. I'm like, you got to grab this. And then like 3 months later, it had like tripled in price. It was nuts. So for me, like I just couldn't fathom spending that much money on a mini Moog, even though it's like one of the greats. It's one of the best ever. I mean, it's the classic synthesizer in my opinion. But for me, you know, I got to make some decisions. You know, I've got lots of stuff in here, but I still have to make decisions about what I buy. And as Simon knows, I've made decisions about what I drive based on what I need in here. And so one of my solutions is, you know, there's certain things that I wanted, certain things that like, I've got to have this one and not something else that's similar. I've got to have this one. So I made the sacrifices and got that. But with the mini Moog, because the Behringer version sounded so good, what I ended up doing is getting a used Waldorf for like, what was it, like $550 or something. I got my mini in there, my Model D in there, and I've got a SIM filter and a Roland filter, and you know, a few other little periphery things, VCA and things. And I've got this like semi-modular mini Moog. So I love messing with filters and changing stuff out. And so, you know, the mini Moog's got the classic ladder, but you know, it sounds also really damn cool with a 12 decibel SIM filter also. So it's not as fun to play because you're doing this little things instead of like, you know, grabbing big knobs. And there's probably some jokes that are going to become of what I just said, but it's great though, because I'm all that whole setup. I'm under $1,000 for all the modules and everything that's in it, and I've got my own sort of version of a mini Moog. And you know, perhaps someday, you know, I can get the real mini Moog, but it sounds good and it's functional for me, and it works.
You'll find again though when you get your 26 going, and that will be the party show where we all have a party when you do finally get some sound out.
Yeah.
But we're you know, again, with a mini, it's well, you've actually got to do something to get a sound out of it. We're lazy because everything now, and I'm sure I'm no different to a lot of people. You turn a synth on and you've got choice of, I'll push a button, I'll get a sound out, but I don't do anything. You know, that's the world that we live in. That's the whole point of programmability, really. Whereas it's different with a mini. I will just very quickly have to tell you, the worst. This is embarrassing. My first ever mini Moog that I bought for a guy called Robin Wood. Robin Wood is the guy that runs the VCS3 Putney, AKS, sorry, company down. Well, it was in London back then. Anyway, back in the day, Robin turned up at my house and he said, "Look, I've got 3 mini Moogs in the back of my car. They're £400 each, or you can have the whole lot for £1,000." He said, "I've also got 3 VCS3s in the back of my car." Yeah, right. He said, "No, this is absolutely true." He said to me, "I'll tell you what." He said, "I'll let you have the whole lot for 1,800 quid."
Oh gosh, this is a sad story, isn't it? Is this going to?
It's a sad story because I said no thanks. I don't like VCS3s. I don't need 3 mini Moogs. I just want one for 400 quid. And he said, "You sure?" And I went, "Yeah, I'm absolutely sure." And he drove off.
Wow.
That is a true story.
Oh man. Well, on that note.
On that note.
Well, we've like barely cracked the topic, but man, this has been a fun show, and a couple of the points, like just to reiterate, like because it's so fun to spend the time in the clouds and with the really expensive stuff, and I think it's helpful to kind of come back and go, there's some really great modern options that you don't have to mortgage your house to buy a classic sounding synthesizer, because they're really knocking it out of the park with these reissues. And oftentimes we're getting extra features too, like with the OBX8, or even the new mini Moogs have extra features and extra LFO and stuff that the originals
MIDI on
didn't.
them, Yeah.
Just
having MIDI is huge for some of these.
Right. Yeah.
And not to mention also something that Cy and I deal with is fixing stuff. I can say, like, I'm pretty damn tired of it after whatever 30 years of fixing things. Like, I don't want to fix anything else. I want to fix that 2600, and I've got like that Silvertone up there that I got fixed, and like there are some things that I got to do, but I would rather spend my time playing than maintaining my instrument. So it's nice we have some options, and across the price
it's a
ranges,
labour of love. There's definitely pros and cons with old kit. So we're very, very lucky, really, that they've come up with this stuff that, again, you turn on, you don't have to worry about it. If it goes wrong, you've got support at the end of a telephone. And I will just have to say, I would love just to say that Sequential or Focus, right, wherever we are now, their customer support is just brilliant.
Yeah, everybody says the
so
same
good.
thing. Yeah,
so good. And Moog is getting better. I know they're in a bit of a transition, because I think Amos has gone. I think a lot of the people that were there have gone. But generally speaking, if an OBX goes down, I've got to fix it, and there's a lot going on in there.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful. But yeah, I'm really pleased that having the option now to. So in that respect, yeah, I agree with you, Marshall. Maybe Roland should come up with a modern Jupiter 8, because
I think they should. There's definitely a market for it.
I think everyone. Yeah, I guess if Roland should do that, then maybe Yamaha should come up with a CS80. But where do you stop with this stuff?
If those two happened, oh my gosh, I don't think
you'd have 4 rooms.
and it'd be worth it.
Okay, so look, you got one coin here, okay, for everyone here. One side of the coin says Jupiter 8, the other side says CS80. What would you go for, you guys? You're only allowed one though.
That is tough.
I don't care. I'll take either one.
I think I'd be equally happy with either. I don't think we're gonna get either, but
I would probably
either.
Either.
I would probably go for the Jupiter. I feel like that would probably be the more useful one for me personally, though I love both synthesizers a lot. But yeah, they said
PS80. I've never. I mean, I love the Blade Runner sound, and Vangelis is just like he just makes the thing sing. But all the other sounds in it, I've never really been.
I never heard. Yeah, I don't know.
Paul Torbert for the win here. Coin Edge's Behringer.
Yeah, maybe.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, hey, let's
mostly
let me ask
Mercedes in there, by the way, in the chat. So thanks, guys, for
yeah. Well, hey, let's we wanted just to hit real quick. What are you guys doing this week, and what's going on with you, Marshall? What's happening, man?
I've got some people coming in to do some work on the house, and then after that is the studio tour. So that's next on my list. I'm still doing game music stuff, and I'm still doing live stuff and all my normal stuff that I say every week pretty much. But that's a big deal, getting some things worked out to be able to get you guys that studio tour I've been promising. So
nice.
I look forward to that.
Yeah.
I love being nosy.
That's going to be
nosy.
cool.
I love studio tours.
You got to see what you don't have so you can go get it.
Well, exactly. There's lots I don't have. I mean, I keep saying to Cryss, I keep saying to Cryss that I want to get the Behringer, the Hydrasynth, what's it called, Deluxe?
Yeah.
Deluxe, yeah.
That's great.
I mean, why? I've always wondered. One Hydrasynth sounds superb. Why do you need two? Well, you don't need two, but two Hydrasynths, man, it's still. I still think value for money. That's still got to be best synth.
And it's poly aftertouch on the keyboard. I mean,
and it's
a lot of good
look
things
at the quality of all the buttons, and the build quality is about as good as you'll get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Tim, what about you, man?
Marshall.
Oh, I've got my usual just work things coming up, so some session work, and I've got a benefit that's coming up. But this week in particular, I really need to start to work on the show that I'm presenting on March 26th here at a club 404 in Nashville, where I'm going to start hopefully doing a residency every Sunday, or the last Sunday of every month. That's what he meant to say. And but I'm going to be playing a set on the first one, so I need to start writing that set. It's only going to be 30 minutes of music, but that's enough. So I need to get that together and figured out and rehearsed. And then I think I'm going to start spending some time coming up with some sounds for this horror film that I'm going to score, which I think it'll probably have a couple of months yet before I'll even receive any kind of edit that I can start to work on. But I want to kind of start, because I've talked to the director, I want to kind of start curating some sounds. I kind of want to start creating some sounds and keep a folder worth of some ideas that I could maybe start to splash here and there, so that I'm not faced with it all at once, because it's always a trick to have to do sound design and everything on the spot. If I can get a little bit of a head start, knowing what I know about what he's looking for, the director, then that'll help me a little bit. So I think I'll be working on that this week as well.
Will there be a lot of Oberheim sounds on that? I'm guessing there will be.
I mean, there sure could be. I don't know where I'm going to take it yet. I mean, it's kind of a mystery to me still. That's what I'm saying. I think I need to kind of start curating some ideas until something really feels like, oh, that's going to match. Because I have read the script and I know generally what the director's wanted after a couple of Zoom calls. He's in New Zealand, so there's quite a time difference there. But yeah, there may be.
Going to take that whole rig out when you do your live show. You're going to take that entire rig out of your room.
Just the rig that you see at the very back of the room there. So it's basically just the tip. Yeah, it's a Machine Plus, a tip-top case full of Eurorec modules, and then just the little KeyStep Pro keyboard plus a mixer so I can just send a left and right out to the front of house.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd really tried to pare it down. I did another live thing once, and I took a bunch of gear out, and it was really fun. It was kind of a nightmare, and everybody else that was on the show laughed at me and said, "Yeah, I remember when I did my first show, and I took out a bunch of stuff." And I was like, "I know, but I'm having fun. Come on, don't mess with me. I'm having a good time." So yeah, then I pared it down to just that.
How about you, Si?
Well, actually, I'm off work at the moment. I'm recovering because I had my hip resurfaced, so I'm sort of back up, and I've got a lot of time to fix stuff, and I keep buying broken DX7s. Don't ask me why, because I know it's an illness. It is.
I mean, just throw them away. I mean, come on.
Yeah, no. So I have now got 6 DX7s to my name. Okay,
Oh, wow.
and I've got them all going, and I will also confess that I bought a couple of these with my brother, and we've just thrown them in the lockup. And I said, Rob, you know what? We really ought to start moving some of these DX7s. So he said, no, we must do that. And some of these have been, absolutely dead on arrival, and some of them just been really tatty and that. So we got them going, changed all the backlight, and yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
And last week he rang me up and he said, "Guess what? There's another DX7 that's come out, and I only buy them if they're really, really cheap." Anyway, I've got another one in the garage, so I'll be fixing that one up. That is how exciting my life is at the moment. I'm hobbling around fixing up DX7s in my garage. Yeah. Doorbells. Yeah. But no, it's got the weather's actually changed. It's got a little bit warmer here, so I'll be spending a little bit more time out here on the third wave, because I'm really getting into that. It's a great synth, and
It's a wonderful sounding synth.
Yeah, it's good, and the guys at Groove are really, there's an update for this pretty much every couple of weeks, and they're very proactive. That's something I like with synths. All the feedback they're getting from the users are now doing. And if you write to Bob or the team at Groove, they're very they listen to you. And having met Bob in person when I've flown to San Francisco, he's a larger than life character. He's just got that beaming smile of enthusiasm. So it's a great piece of kit. And anyone that has not gone on Manny Fernandez's channel, just have a he's got a brain the size of a planet, and he's bloody good on it. He really is. So yeah, but I'll be doing that really, and watching your show next Wednesday.
Nice. I'll show you
now that I
what
can stay up till whatever, midnight and 3.
Yeah, you don't have a bedtime.
Exactly. I don't. Yeah, I don't feel too bad for it as well. So
that's good.
Yeah. And you've is that working now? That CR68, Chris? Did you got that going? Did you?
Let's see if I can.
Look at the.
Be clever.
That's
enough
really
to
clean.
Do this.
That's a really.
I know, right?
Really clean one.
Cosmetically, it looked almost brand new there.
Yeah, it's just like a slightest bit like it needs to be wiped down. Really, not much at all. It's in fantastic condition. So, I just told my buddy, it's like, you are a nasty drum machine slut, and he bought this one.
It's like, wow.
Okay. Mind you, he's the one that had the Tempest that we used and the sequential tom. I mean, he's trying to catch up with Psy on all this stuff, and he's doing his darndest. But so he got this one here, and then he found a Woodcase CR78, and so I've done the Town Tech mod on this one here, so you can actually, it's got a mini jack on the back now, right, which makes it so much handier because you can sequence it. I mean, this you can't do much on the 68, but you can sequence it with whatever you have. And so that's really cool. You can use MIDI notes to trigger the sounds. And then on Friday, he's coming to pick this up and dropping off the CR78, and I'm going to be putting the new chip stuff in that one. And then he just told me today he's got a Woodcase 68 coming too. So he's keeping me busy, but I've been having fun with this Benson Monarch, which is also his amp. And it is fantastically good sounding. It is unbelievable. It's inside it's like a 50 style amp, and it's got this American and British switch on it that, my gosh. So I've been having a little bit of a play around with the IK Multimedia Tonex software and doing captures on this and getting some really great tones. So that's been the fun stuff that I've been doing. And then one last thing here I'll show you guys if I can, is I got a shoe rack. But I don't have any shoes, so I just
wow.
I just put some pedals on it instead.
Yeah.
Foot shoes, foot pedals. It all works, right?
Yeah.
So,
Wow. Yeah.
anyways, that's my week.
That's a lot of pedals. That's an awful lot of pedals. But I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the same thing as what you were talking about. I mean, right from day one, I was like, dude, pedals are awesome. I got to have more of these, and I worked my butt off to get some. But starting in the late '90s or so, I started working on them, and I could find deals for stuff that was broken, and I could afford it. I'd buy it, and I would flip most of them, and I would keep the stuff that was my favorite, and that's how I generated a lot of the money. Playing guitar paid bills, but never bought me guitar equipment, so it was always like doing electronics work.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how I built up a lot of that stuff, or rebuilding amplifiers and things. So working on synthesizers and drum machines is more a newer thing, and whole nother ballpark of stuff to figure out, but it's fun. And
where have you moved the Moog One, Chris? Because it was to your right, wasn't it?
Yeah, I have it sitting just to the left.
Okay.
It's on a stagehand stand, and then my matriarch's on top of it right now, because I just needed the workroom. I was working on the drum machine and guitars. I fixed another friend's Les Paul this week, so. Yeah, I just need a little desk room, slid it over, and looking forward to coming back. So,
Cool.
anyways, I think that about wraps it up. So,
That's
anyways,
gone quick, isn't it? Sorry if I've been just
we're-
waffling on. Just gone.
we've
quick,
been having
hasn't it?
fun, and we'll hit another
I really
one.
enjoyed it.
I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll have some more to talk about. Like every time we get together to talk, there's always so much.
We
So
spent hours on the phone talking about things. I thanks for putting that picture of that guitar up, because
that's great.
Honestly, yeah. So if anyone's got one of those guitars, I want one. Thanks for having me on, guys. I really enjoyed it.
No,
Thanks,
you.
Si.
Yeah, great, Si. Thanks for being on.
No, not at all. Anytime.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody in the chat. Really appreciate everybody. Hey, I just want to say one last thing, and that's a thank you to Paul Artola. So with our switching of time, like he's caught the mistakes of somebody putting up the same template and forgetting to change the time. I'm not going to say who, but he's helped us out on several occasions. But also, like, he's been one guy that has probably been to every show. He's been here more than I have, and so we want to thank Paul, because we really appreciate everything you've done here in the chat, and everybody else that comes. In the middle of the night, some of you guys over in Europe, and we all have a really great time. So just want to say thank you, and we'll see all of you next week. Take care, everyone.
So long.